A few minutes ago, the Russian military published very interesting footage that caused a mixed reaction among the representatives of the expert community. Experts were extremely surprised by the fact that Russian FPV drones captured the Ukrainian Special Forces Group, which tried to sneak into the positions of Russian troops in the Zaporizhzhia region to carry out sabotage operations. Unfortunately for the Ukrainian militants, Russian drones discovered the enemy group and tried to destroy it. The footage shows how Russian drones are chasing Ukrainian militants for their further destruction. Realizing that it would not be possible to escape from the Russian drones, the Ukrainian saboteurs fell to their knees and raised their hands, making it clear that they were surrendering. Later, the prisoners of war said that they were trained by French military instructors to commit sabotage on Russian territory. Commenting on this situation, experts were surprised that such a well-trained Ukrainian sabotage and reconnaissance group surrendered so quickly, without offering decent resistance. In addition, this case once again confirmed that the NATO military is directly involved in hostilities on the territory of Ukraine. Meanwhile, the military departments of Western countries have increasingly begun to report accidents that result in the death of their officers and soldiers. Independent experts and analysts have noticed that earlier, after each massive Russian missile attack on the territory of Ukraine, many defense departments of Western countries reported the death of their active duty soldiers and officers as a result of some accident. In particular, countries such as the United States, France, and Poland reported the deaths of their soldiers, high-ranking officers, and even generals, the most. At the same time, experts note that recently there have been many more such reports in NATO countries. Moreover, now such reports have begun to appear not only after massive Russian missile attacks, but also after every clash between the armed forces of Ukraine and Russian troops on the battlefield. All this indicates that not only foreign mercenaries are fighting on the side of the armed forces of Ukraine, but also active duty soldiers and officers of NATO countries. Even though the defense departments of Western countries do not officially recognize the presence of their military on the territory of Ukraine, war correspondents and independent monitoring services say the opposite. According to them, soldiers and officers of NATO armies have been present on the territory of Ukraine since the very beginning of hostilities. And now, against the backdrop of an acute shortage of manpower in the ranks of the armed forces of Ukraine, NATO soldiers and officers are forced to take direct part in hostilities against Russian troops. At the same time, war correspondents note that over the past 5 months, the number of French soldiers and officers stationed on the territory of Ukraine has increased threefold. According to them, if things go on like this, France will take first place among Western countries in terms of the number of soldiers and officers stationed on the territory of Ukraine. Let me remind you that currently, it is Poland that ranks first in terms of the number of its active duty soldiers and officers located on the territory of Ukraine. By the way, Poland also ranks first among NATO countries in terms of the number of soldiers and officers killed in the Ukrainian conflict. A few days ago, the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation officially announced that more than 5,000 Polish mercenaries had been confirmed dead in the entire period of conflict, most of whom were active duty soldiers and officers of the Polish army. At the same time, representatives of the Russian Defense Ministry admit that this figure is greatly underestimated, since Poland in every possible way hides and does not recognize the deaths of its soldiers and officers in Ukraine. According to unofficial data, as of June 16, 2024, the total number of losses of the Polish army in Ukraine is about 12,000 soldiers and officers. Such heavy losses of the Polish army are due to the fact that Russian troops destroy dozens of Polish Krab self-propelled guns on the battlefield almost every week. According to the Russian Defense Ministry, all these self-propelled guns are operated exclusively by personnel of the armed forces of Poland. For example, on June 12, near the village of Lipsy, a Russian Lancet kamikaze drone destroyed a Polish self-propelled gun along with its combat crew. And literally 2 days after that, the command of the 1st Artillery Brigade of the 16th Mechanized Division of the Polish Army reported the death of 5 of its soldiers. Without giving details, the Polish military simply said that these soldiers died in an accident during military exercises in Poland. By the way, the Polish Ministry of Defense did the same on March 27, 2024, immediately after the Russian ballistic missile hit and destroyed the command post of the Armed Forces of Ukraine in the city of Chasiv Yar. Back then, 2 days after this missile strike, the Polish Defense Ministry announced the death of 3 of its soldiers, including Polish Army General Adam Marchik. At the same time, in Poland, they stressed that all of them died unexpectedly in their off-duty periods. Thus, in March 2024, Poland became the 3rd NATO country to lose its general in the current conflict in Ukraine. Earlier, after similar attacks by Russian ballistic missiles on military facilities in Ukraine, U.S. Army General Anthony Potts was also killed. At the same time, the Pentagon still claims that the American general allegedly died in a plane crash. The same thing happened to the French general Jean-Louis Georgelin. Surprisingly, 2 days after the destruction of the classified command post of the Armed Forces of Ukraine by the Russian Iskander-M ballistic missile, France announced the death of 2 of its officers, including General Jean-Louis Georgelin. The French military department still claims that all these high-ranking officers died in an accident on French territory. Meanwhile, experts express confidence that the more escalation increases, the more difficult it will be for the governments of NATO countries to hide the presence of Western troops on the territory of Ukraine. Therefore, many analytical centers are confident that shortly, Western leaders will be forced to officially recognize not only the presence of NATO troops on the territory of this Eastern European country, but also the heavy losses of the North Atlantic Alliance.